All right, hey, so we're live. There's a big red thing in the corner of my screen. Welcome to 40K Frontiers. This is content for the content gods. So yeah, Sam is away being like responsible in real life or something. So I'm theoretically the responsible one here to press the buttons. And here to introduce the guests is the lovely Benny Way. How you doing, man?
Hi guys. So we've got a really exciting episode tonight. We have got three of Australia's great content producers that you might not have heard of before, but you should have done. We've got them. We've got them. We want to show the spotlight on some of the other amazing 40K content creators that are out there in Australia. So we've brought them on, and they can to have a chat about kind of like how they got into the situation they're in, how they've like put all this work and into what they do. Some of the products these guys do are incredible. They all do kind of a similar thing, but it's like all got different niches, which is really exciting to hear. So up the top, just next to Taos, I've got Scotty D49. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, going well, thanks, Ben and Alex. Hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, yeah, we are getting there. And then at the top right, we've got Lockie from Risky Rollers.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us here. This is I feel so chuffed. To be spoken about this way. It's great. Hope you guys are both doing well.
It's awesome. And finally, we've got Chris from Legends and Lore.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on, mate.
Yeah.
Well, this is exciting.
Yeah. For those of you guys listening, Ben and I are really professionally just clearly sitting in like some room of a house, and then all the other three guys are sitting in their nice studio setups with like professional looking mic stands and stuff around here. All three of them have RGB lighting in the background. Well, actually, Scott's might just be blue LEDs. But yeah, they've all got like nice
RGB
lights
as well, Towsy.
Okay, good. So yeah,
got some real imposter syndrome going on here, right?
Yeah. Alrighty.
So let's talk about kind of why don't you guys introduce yourselves and what you actually kind of do, because you all kind of take a different angle on things, and kind of let's start. But you talk about kind of what you do, quick introduction, and then we're going to start getting into the juicy stuff. So why don't we start off with you, Chris, from Legends of Lore?
Yeah, look, Legends and Lore prides itself on creating battle reports with extremely high production values. I guess we have a bit of a retro 80s synthwave vibe to our channel, and we're storytellers at heart, really. So whether it's competitive or a custom narrative mission, we always try to inject lots of epic moments, fun twists, exciting new ways to present 40K to our audiences, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is it so how many people are in the part of the crew, mate?
So there's 5 of us at the moment.
Wow.
And so there's 5 of us sort of in the core of Legends and Lore, and we have some guys here and there that pop in and out of some of our videos to fill in. So yeah, creating a nice little tight-knit team at the moment, which is great.
I've seen some of them. You've got a great crew. It's awesome.
Yes, thank you, mate. Yeah, they are pretty awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris. What about you, Lockie? Want to tell us a little bit about Risky Rollers?
It's weird because it's going to be essentially the same spiel, just not having the retro side of it, really. So I don't want to just carbon copy, but pretty much the same thing. So we pride ourselves also on having our high level of production value in the stuff that we do, from our pre-recorded film stuff and edited content to our streams as well as our events. So when we kind of came out, we wanted to be covering every base possible, or working towards covering every base possible within the sort of tabletop market. And that's the sort of the starts with 40K. We've started to branch into 30K, and then covering things like streams and, like I said, running our own events. So just trying to meet the rest of the world's standard on the quality that and content that exists, because prior to Legends and Lore, there wasn't really many that was doing it to the same standard around like the others around all around the world. So that's kind of what we continually strive to meet and someone else starts doing something different. Well, why and where, and trying to push it that way, and then having fun. We're really pushing differently into streams and stuff now, and running what we call the third player, which is the audience, and trying to get new and exciting ways to play 40k, which is kind of where it all began, right? Not so much just competitive or just one way. It's however you want to do it.
When you say the third player, do you mean like Twitch chat being like, "Yo, you got this rule wrong," or
Oh, that sounds awesome. I haven't seen
No.
yet. That's
No?
awesome.
So for sure that, and that's also good because that would be like. That'd be like 3.5 player, but no, the third
because we
player.
had Barnyard Jack on the other day, and he was pointing, like, going on about that sort of thing. But no,
It's super handy, especially for streams. But no, actually having them be part of the game, so letting them dictate certain things and change certain things and stuff like that.
That's cool.
It's what we call our Tempest Tuesdays. So we run Tempest and we kind of change up our own little structure on the game and just to create more community engagement and more people talking. Really, that's the idea of that.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, letting Twitch chat or YouTube chat, whatever you use,
YouTube,
interact with the game state would in fact drive interaction.
It's hilarious. Some of the things that people want to see happen. It's just great, and then we can really push the narrative style and all sorts of other bits and pieces. So it's something we're testing at the moment, and we're seeing it work quite well. So we're liking it.
That's hilarious.
What about you, Scotty?
So yeah, so full name is Scotty D49. I primarily do Twitch live streams, but also do YouTube content, short form content on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook as well, social media posts and live tournament coverage. So yeah, I more take a bit of a different tact. I want to produce content for players at every stage, whether you're starting off with your first army and you're just getting into 40k, if you're intermediate and you're wanting to develop as a player, or if you're at that tournament level and like, what is on the competitive cusp, like what's going on competitively, what's the new balanced starter slate saying, what's the rankings at, things like that. And just being able to provide that content for anyone at any stage. I think something that I noticed in the content sphere was that there was a real lack of beginner-friendly content. And so that's where I really wanted to lean into to help bring people into the hobby and then be able to bring them up the stages. So go from your first games, then getting to 2,000 points, then learning how to play better, and then being able to start playing competitively. And then also doing the tournament streams, traveling to events to really take what Frontline Gaming or Hellstrom Wargaming in the UK, Honest Wargamer in the UK as well, what all those guys are doing with live coverage and doing the exact same thing to bring the spotlight on the Australian scene, especially after the Australian WTC win this year.
Yeah, it turns out you guys are not bad at the Toy Soldiers game, eh?
Yeah,
no, not at all.
I hope you're not talking about me specifically there, but the rest of the country is not too bad.
No, the rest of the country's dragging you up along with them, Ben. It's fine.
Yeah, that's good. That's all I'd say. Just a piece of driftwood, tagging at the end.
No,
Well,
driftwood's
so
buoyant, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true. I'm just getting dragged along.
Yeah. Alrighty.
You do some pretty interesting stuff, right? So, even though, like, I know that Chris and Lockie there said that they did quite similar things, but in saying that, there's still some quite big differences. Like, so I'd love to hear about how you even got into, doing this kind of thing, because I know from doing stuff like Down Under 40k, that you start off with just one thing, and then a year later you're like, what have I done? What have I created here? You end up with like this huge thing, and you're just like, I've got like
Scope creep go burr.
Pies. I'm doing this. Yeah. I'm running like an RTT, and it all goes out of control. So I don't mind who takes this. Why don't we start with Scotty? How did you even get into doing your? Because I know you do a lot of live streams. Like I've been on your stream at least 3 times. I'm pretty sure. And like you do a lot of live stream. How did you get to the point where, when you went, I'm going to start making my own content, and then kind of how rapidly did it grow from there?
So funnily enough, I actually started this probably about almost 10 years ago now. I was on a gap year out of high school. I actually started a podcast. It was called the Second Wave Podcast. With a couple of mates, and that was when I was really starting to get into competitive 40k, and I really wanted to get some content from Australia out there, and that was kind of where I started. And it's kind of just been something that's transitioned to, like, very similar to you, Ben, doing the tournaments and running events and all that. and then helping out with the ITC in Australia and bringing that in. And then the ebbs and flows of that happens. You know, we go into COVID and it's like we're in lockdown, everyone's at home watching content. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to get back into doing content and scratching that itch, as you'd say, and being able to bring that Australian light to the rest of the world of what we do 40K wise in the country. And so, yeah, started doing hobbying streams. And yeah, it's really about providing a spotlight for the Australian community. I think at its heart is what my passion is, and serving the community through that.
Nice. Ben, you're muted, mate.
Well, we got
Quality
our first
content
one.
right
We're
here.
10 minutes and 30 seconds in. That's actually probably a new record. It usually takes me a little bit longer to get lazy on the mute button like that. But here we are. What about you, Chris? Because your channel's like you say you've got 5 people, and I know that you've got people that you pull in because I've watched them. I've also played against a few of those people myself. So
Sure.
you're like, you know, you've got like a lot. Like, even though I know you say you've got 5 as the core, like you've got like a kind of mini community as well happening around you as well. So
Yeah, we have actually, and it sort of just started. I guess it just started off small. It was just this small sort of Facebook sort of chat group that we were all together, and that space was primarily for just organising some games here and there. And so it's funny when I chat to other content creators and, you know, how they began their journeys, and I kind of feel like mine personally, and for Legends and Lore, it's a little bit of the opposite in terms of I was actually a filmmaker first before an actual 40K hobbyist. So I've been in the film and television business for over 15 years, and then actually only started playing tabletop gaming in general in 2017. So I kind of caught the hobby bug, and in the back of my mind really just had this intention to put something together in terms of content creation, utilize those skills in filmmaking and creativity, and try and present something fresh and new to audiences. So yeah, it's we take it a week at a time, and we always strive to push the envelope when it comes to creativity and engagement. And it's a hell of a ride. It's a bloody hard work, but it's all worth it in the end. So
It's definitely a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of work.
Oh, mate, yeah, that's right. Tell us about you, Lockie. Tell us about Risky
So-
Rollers.
Mine's weird. My I guess coming into content creation is kind of split between kind of Chris and Scott, really. So I played the game back in third edition. So, you know, back when I was 6 or 7 or whatever, and then played through for a little bit, and then, you know, same as everyone else, hit high school and wasn't cool anymore, and then stopped, and then got back into it 8th, and I didn't even know battle reports were a thing. So at the end of 8th, I didn't even know like that's what people did, let alone make money off it. And then my cousin was like, "Oh, you know, watch this battle report." I'm like, "What the fuck? What do you mean watch this battle report?" I'm like, I always thought it was still just white dwarves and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like it was that I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And then through that break period, I actually worked in games for a bunch in video games, and kind of got the content creation bug there, doing podcasts with them about showcasing the games we were working on and those kinds of things. And just so happened at the time, after the fact of going, well, I've got all these skills of within games and sort of how that similar sort of filmography sort of stuff and videography sort of bits and pieces work, you know, let's put it together, and saw there was a market for it and gone, you know, here's something that we can potentially push together. And then as well, not really seeing that there was a lot of, I guess, not a lot of competition out there in Australia in terms of really like, we deep dove really hard to try and find what the current, I guess, state of it was within Australia. And it was pretty tough. But then also similar to Chris, you know, it came out of finding people to play with in the Bayside area, which originally we were based, because there was no groups or clubs So you had, your House of War in the East Way, which is sort of where we are now, but back pretty far from where we were. You had some stuff in Malvern and some stuff in Frankston and scattered, and then heaps out west, loads out west. There wasn't really anything.
Oh yeah, just quickly, Lockie, like for those not familiar with these Australian places, these are suburbs of a city, I assume, yeah?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
These are suburbs all within sort of Greater Melbourne.
Cool.
And then basically just did the same thing, put a Facebook post out on the Melbourne 40K group and found 3 people straight off the bat who we started playing games with and now are part of our core group as well. And our core group has grown significantly as well since the sort of the introduction or the beginning of Risky Rollers, because the amount of stuff that we do, you can't do it all on your own.
Yeah, I know like Ben and I are pretty lucky with the network that we're part of. We just sort of like rock up, like hit the buttons a bit on the thing, and then fire something off to an editor. So we're very fortunate in that regard. Hopefully we don't you guys like having to go at us for our privilege.
When I did Down Under, when we do Down Under 40K, it wasn't until episode 44 that I got it edited. So I did like 44 of those edits myself. And I was ready to throw the towel in. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like we'll get into that later because when we talk about well, that's gonna be a question that all of you guys are gonna have,
Sure.
But I can probably elaborate a little bit on my thing there. But why don't we
I mean you need a big group. I mean I can't speak for Scott and Chris, but I mean not just prepping stream content and graphic stuff and then list writing and then keeping up to date with the meta and the things that change, scheduling guests. We're about to start a podcast as well. There's that, painting models. So that's the thing. So, like having commission painters on like internally part of Risky Rollers. So we have people who make terrain and then the guys that we have 3 moderators that run our Discord and then everyone who can potentially support on the events that we run because, there's a lot of those coming up as well, and it's just it's nuts. And it's probably a bad thing to have, like you were saying, Ben, earlier, just start here, and then you realize you've got something that's like
you
this.
Don't realize until it's too late, mate.
Have you guys?
It's already happened. By the time
but that's the best thing. That's the best thing. It's the biggest driver, man. It's like, let's go. You know what I mean?
Now, there's a real good sense of energy once all parties have come together and you're all on the same page. You've got a bit of a mission statement or where you guys, want to be in 5 years or 10 years. And there's a real good energy there and you can just harness that and really make some interesting stuff. So, yeah,
for sure.
100%.
Definitely sounds like you guys are a bit ahead of that curve compared to me. I've been a one-man show for the past couple of years with a couple of mods. That's it.
So why don't we talk a little bit? I'd love to. So I'm going to focus a little bit on Chris and Lockie here, just for a second, because kind of Scotty's going to have his kind of own part of this as well. So let's start with
right, hit the bench, Scotty.
Chris. And no, because you'll see that you see the kind of pattern here because we've got Chris who does mainly recorded battle reports, and then we're going to go to speak to Lockie, who's kind of dabbling in the live stuff, and then we'll go to the master of the live stuff himself, Scotty, afterwards. So, Chris, you've worked in. It's really interesting. You worked in TV and stuff like that, or you still do. That's really interesting, and it obviously makes a lot of sense now after watching your things. Because I was like, how does this guy have any time to do any of this? I mean, So why did you? So you say that you started like backwards, which is often a thing that in 40K content creators have got to upskill with their ambition. So tell me about kind of why you chose to basically go down the edited route and do what you did. So you obviously had a mission, like you said, like something you really wanted to achieve. With that, I'd love to hear kind of like what. Because you can kind of go either way, or you can do both, right?
Sure.
So with live and stuff like that. What was the kicker there?
Look, at the time during the conception of Legends and Lore, certainly YouTube live was a thing, but in the 40K space, it wasn't a thing as what it has become today. So that's the first thing. Secondly, look, the strength of our channel is always our editing. That way we can rely on the experience that myself and the few of the others in there have in filmmaking. And also the way it's presented and the importance of video duration and just to keep that audience retention. It's extremely important to us. So we try and aim to have our battle reports no longer than 90 minutes. And when you go live, battle reports at 2K is somewhat impossible to sort of try and achieve that in our minds anyway.
No, you're right. You're 100% correct.
Yeah. But in saying that, I think there are some massive benefits for live, like the ability just to connect directly to your audience whilst you're producing content is an amazing feature to have. And it's probably something that we'll eventually explore in our own unique way. But personally, we feel that it's a little restrictive in creativity and how it's presented in a way compared to a more polished video. At this stage anyway, I think edited videos allow for more injection of, animations and all these little quirky, unique ideas that I think can present well to an audience from our perspective anyway.
You can flex your filmmaking muscles more with the with like an actual editing time, right?
Correct. Yeah. Like a filmmaker's worst nightmare is something going live because so many things can go wrong. Like a filmmaker needs to be in control 100% of the time, know exactly what's going to happen. So hats off to the people who do live. Will be bloody stressful. So for now we're on the edited route and just flexing those filmmaking muscles.
Yeah, that's excellent news. I can tell you about, even though we only do this podcast live, and you can see sometimes in Sam's eyes when like me and Taos start talking about something, you can see in his eyes stress. And, like,
you can just see it in his eyes when I
his head like, fucking, please, can you be quiet? Wrap it up. So, that's really interesting what you said about like the 90 minutes too. I think that's a really interesting thing. Like on Best in Tabletop, they've been doing these bit reps, which are still a different concept to what you're doing, but they're recorded and they try to keep them to real short, and it really does it does make a difference. Like, I think there's a time and the place. There's a time where I like to watch a 3-hour game, and just it's like a movie. I don't watch much TV, so I think that's really good. And there's sometimes where you want to watch like a tournament game, but sometimes it's just like 90 minutes, and it's kind of like sits on a perch between like battle report and almost like an entertainment, like an episode, which I think is like really, really nice balance for for absorbing what's actually happening, like in the kind of feel of the game. So it's really interesting that. So, and Lockie, you said you've been doing a lot of so you started off with recording, right? And you said you were a one-man show for most of it. You got. I need to hear about a bit how you've decided I'm going to record battle reports and edit them on my own.
No. So I was never one man show. So never.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No. Scotty's the one man show.
Oh no, Scotty. I know Scott. Yeah, Scotty.
Yeah, no. So it's been originally it was Dalton and myself and a mate of mine from high school who is a videographer. So basically, I randomly was talking to him at his house and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing this new thing." Showed it. He's like, "How are you going to do it?" And I was going to teach same thing. What you were saying about Alex about upskilling and like having to upskill yourself and all those kind of things. Like I was full about to go head and heels. Like I've done a little bit, but not really. Could not do it the way it's produced. Like no way. And like coming from what Chris is saying, that kind of the inverse. So basically, we started doing pre-recorded and as we were kind of learning our feet, learning YouTube, learning what is the audience, learning all these different things, progression in the studio, all these bits and pieces. And then it's gotten to a point where we want to take it into a different route entirely, not only from what we want to cover, but how we want to produce stuff. it's because we don't have the internal skills, it then becomes a bit of a crutch for us as opposed to doing the live. So the live for us actually ends up being more fluid and easier for us to navigate and utilize than it is for the pre-recorded stuff. And we've made the conscious decision in the last couple of months for it always to be both, because we want to eventually push into things like Infinity or Bolt Action, or basically have the opportunity where we will cover as many bases as possible, because we want to sort of be regarded as a tabletop channel, not necessarily a 40K channel. That's always going to be the standard, really, because that's our love, number one, really. But just I learn a lot in my other company with business, and I've found that if I can position stuff from the beginning to be flexible, where we can pivot and shift where we need to. And COVID, this was also coming out of COVID, right? Like, we started pretty much just before the lockdowns. So, like, I think we'd done like 3 eps, and then it was like lockdown, big time. Like, what do we do?
Was that good or bad? Was that like, here, have like a whole bunch of months where you've got free time and you're locked in a room, so it's perfect to do streams, or was it rubbish because you can't get anywhere?
You can't get anyone over.
Yeah,
you can't do anything. So what it actually did is it forced us to look at, forced me to look at, all right, well, we need to have some sort of systems in place that can be somewhat foolproof in a way to get around this problem if it ever does continue to happen or happens again. And that's what we pushed into the podcast. So we were like, okay, we don't know if we're going to be able to cover content for 6, 9, 12, whatever it was at the time.
Well,
so we're
start of COVID, no one knew what was going to happen, right? Whether or not the world was going to end. Yeah.
And then we were trying to, like, especially for us here in Victoria, where it was pretty much like, oh, you'll be in lockdown for 2 weeks. Now you're in it for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Oh,
and then it was so jerky here and back. It was crazy. So we were like, all right, what if we just do a podcast? Audio podcast. It'll still feed the algorithm to a degree, and then it will keep people, will remain on people's radars. And that was kind of that proof of concept for that system in my eyes, going, well, you just need to be able to roll with the punches, whatever it is. Games Workshop might turn around tomorrow and go, we're going to stop content creators, or who knows what, do you know what I mean? And be able to go, all right, how can we pivot? If Games Workshop goes under tomorrow, like, who are we going to pivot to next? Who, what's the other thing that we want to try and, cover and be relevant for? So we feel covering multiple bases enables us to do that effectively. But we're still learning. Like, it's hard. It's hard game. The stream stuff is, stuff goes wrong sometimes, and you're like, oh my god, it's horrible. It's funny. It's funny. I reckon
it goes wrong in pre-recorded stuff too, man.
But you fix it in post, right? You got the magic words. Oh, we'll fix that in post, and then it's like you hand it to someone else to be their problem.
Oh gosh, some of the stories, I tell you, like, a lot of things can go wrong.
And it's the turnaround time. Like, one of the actual biggest reasons for pushing for, sorry, I'm harping on a bit, but one of the biggest reasons for pushing to streams for us was actually getting stuffed around with Games Workshop's balanced data slate thing. So we basically, on the first 2 data slates that came out, we actually had 4 episodes that were nuked.
Yeah,
wow.
Because it's like, we haven't posted these things.
Irrelevant. They were key.
Yeah.
They were key episodes with key armies that had received massive changes. Going, well, we just can't release this. This is just doesn't make sense, and we're not big enough to say like Tactics or Titans, or I mean, it's not really relevant time. But say like Winters or someone else who's pre-recorded, where they go, "We're so big, who cares? It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
Every kind of video and view sort of mattered, and we were just like, "Well, what are we going to do? We'll bank it for our patrons and whatever." And then it happened again. Because of that delay, and we're just like, we need a solution, and streams is that solution for us.
And it's nice. I guess it's nice not having to double handle your content a little bit as well, because you've got to touch your content twice when you do the recorder stuff. I think like if you've got the skills of someone like Chris, and can pump them out, and that's his target. Like I can understand why he wouldn't really branch away from that. But also, like, I can see, like you said about getting when stuff goes wrong on stream, like that's also a thing, right? I'd love to hear about I bet you've got some stories, Scotty. So what?
I do.
You definitely keep all your stuff, like with Scotty. You definitely keep all your stuff is like always available to rewatch. But You're a guy who sticks to a schedule like I've never seen before. Like you are, when you say you're going to be live, you are live on the dot on that time every time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into and you chose live specifically?
Yeah, so I guess it was kind of something that I'd always been interested in. So in terms of like going into COVID and stuff, I actually was on stand down for about 5-6 weeks during that first set of lockdowns. And pretty much I was stuck at home. My wife was taking the car to work. And so I was home 24/7, not having anything to do. And I was watching, I know it's not wargaming, but video game streams. Like I was watching a guy, Stone Mountain 64, and watching his content, what he does, and a few others as well. And it was just like, you know, I was seeing their passion. I was seeing what they were doing. I was like, you know what, I reckon I could give this a go. And I was just talking with people. I was like, okay, what direction do I want to take? What do I want to try and do? I was like, oh, I could do try and escape from Tarkov initially, as well as doing Warhammer stuff. And I got to the point towards the end of the year and like, I need to choose one or the other. This isn't working. And so I went, you know what, I'm going to stick with what I know best, and that's 40K, because Tarkov I was getting tilted as at times. So I stuck with 40K and I went, you know what, let's just do hobby streams. Let's hang out with people. Let's paint. Let's work on my projects. So something that I'm actually quite big on is a challenge that I call the War on Grey Plastic Challenge. If you've ever heard of the Independent Characters podcast, very similar to their Hobby Progress Challenge, just to re-innovate it in a way for that. And so that's something that, you know, I want to encourage people to get through their backlogs and work on their own hobby progress. Whilst they see me working on stuff, you know, they can ask questions in chat about what I'm doing or about techniques, also about, rules questions and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it was really, that was what the start was. And then it was a couple of guys down in Victoria actually were like, hey, why don't you come and cover CoastCon, which is a tournament that happens down in Portland. It's on the southern coast of Victoria there. Went down there. That was the first tournament that I ever covered. You know, my setup was rickety and it was hodgepodge and shambled together, and I got crook from it. But you know what? I loved it. I loved being able to.
That's awesome.
You know, and the way that I kind of looked at it was like, well, you see guys like Paul Murphy, Nick Nardavati on the GW streams. You see Adam Camilleri, the Falcon, all the FLGN guys. Like, you see the professionalism that they bring. And I'm like, I saw that there was the Art of War guys that had done a couple of streams down in Victoria, and then it just kind of stopped. And I'm like, okay, who's covering Australian events? And I'm like, I want to bring that coverage to Australian events on the East Coast, because I know, of course, Objective Secured does some stuff over on WA side. I want to bring that coverage. I want to bring that professionalism that Frontline Gaming have, that Art of War have got, in terms of not just my live streams and doing hobbying and helping people, but also tournament coverage as well. And so you're 100% right that things can go wrong on the fly, and they do. Players will often knock the dice cam trade to no avail. Even our own here with us, Benny Way, is messed up the dice
trade. Got my big old gorilla hands just crushing up his paper in his dice trade. Like, I was there for, I rolled like 2 sets of dice at that point and just scrunched the whole thing up.
I would be the absolute worst at this. I throw dice all the time when I'm playing, and it's not because like I'm upset or anything. I'm just a klutz. I'll be like, I'll try to roll like out the back of your hand or something, and it'll like stick in one of the crooks of like my finger and just go flying across the room.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think I'd learn at this point to roll dice correctly, but no, we can't do it.
Yeah. And so I guess with live streaming tournament games, I come at it as being like, I want to showcase the scene. I don't want to just pick from the top players every single game, because, you know, you could pick someone to start on stream and they could be on the final round. So I take it in such a way where first 2 to 3 rounds, it's fun matchups. It's great characters. It's there to have enjoyable matchups that, you know, you might normally see on the top tables. Like, for example, Ben's game at No Retreat recently, he was up against Blood Angels with his sisters. I'm like, how often are you going to see that on the top tables at the moment? Maybe 25% of the time, if that. So it was a good showcase to put on there. And it's choosing that. And then going into day 2 or from round 3 to 5 is when I start to pick from the top 8 players and then really start to get those higher matchups. So it kind of caters to both sides. And with it, it's, you know, making sure the players are set up for success on the stream. as best as possible. Like I always give the TOs the expectations or the requirements so they can chuck it in the players pack so that people are aware. Because, you know, I hate getting to events and people, you know, of course people don't read players packs, but they're not even aware that a stream's going to be there. So it's like they're not even prepared to even have the concept of it being there. And that's, you know, that's nothing against them. It's just, okay, I just want to have as much preparation, as much visibility for the players' sake more than my own. And so, yeah, it's also constant iteration, constant improvement in quality over time, and investing what you get in back into improving the quality of your content. And yeah, just trying to make small changes, learning from your experiences that you do at an event. So, for example, something I learned was I went to TerraCon last year in 2021 and I realized lighting's an issue. And so between then and now, when I went to TerraCon this year, I was like, I had lighting. It was perfect. It was fine. So it's all about...
TerraCon's the event that's just in a big ass barn, right? In the middle of nowhere.
Yep. In Paracord, South Australia. It's about 30 minutes.
And you're lucky if it gets up
Victorian
over 12 degrees during winter as well.
Oh, what a nightmare, Ben. How are you going to deal with that? You poor
well,
soul.
it was actually pretty warm this year. The first year I went was way colder. So it wasn't too bad.
So yeah,
that's a really good insight.
So Scotty, you might have already answered this, but have you ever, or do you kind of prep players specifically if they're going to be on that table? I know you kind of put it in the player pack or whatever. No one reads player packs, whatever, which is another issue that we consistently have, especially with the way our events.
Standard procedure, mate. Standard procedure.
I can definitely recommend putting in like a promo code somewhere in your players pack that, like, if they enter that, you'll accept a lower payment fee for the event.
Yeah, do that.
That's actually not a bad idea. Yeah. And then don't tell them, right? Like you don't actually publish.
Yeah. So I went as far as to put, like, I spelled out dollars like in letters rather than having like the dollar sign. So like even if they did a Control F, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if that helped, but yeah. Like area mid sentence.
Have you had to do that, or do you do that going, hey, you know, this is on stream, like a way they should play, or do you approach it that way? Like
I do. So the way I go about it is like when the start of a day and event, you know, I think Ben was there, No Retreat recently, but also other events. I'll kind of jump in when the TOs are doing a briefing. I'll go, hey guys, this is the way the stream's going to work. You know, the requirements and expectations in the players pack. I also will try and post them a week before the event on the actual event page, so they're more visible that way. And then when I choose players, or even before that, I'll actually say, if you don't want to be on stream, come and talk to me straight away, because I don't want to have to muck around and not just waste my time, but waste your time as a player when you're about to kick off a round and ask you, oh, do you want to be on stream? It's like, oh, sorry, I don't want to. Like, is, you know, it's a time-saving thing. So it's being like, okay, how can I go and make the most efficient process possible? So I'll go, if anyone doesn't want to be, let me know, or let the TOs know, they can let me know. And then it's all about setting the players up. So just being like, look, make sure you don't swear as much on stream, you know, roll your dice in the dice tray. But also being like, have fun, like have banter back and forth, because, you know, there are going to be people on stream that want to enjoy the game and want to, you know, see you guys enjoying yourselves as well, because there's nothing worse than having a stream game that's like very tense and very, like, not necessarily stalemate, but like you can cut the air with a knife.
So I assume from that, Scott, that you've got players mic'd as well then? Your pro player mic'd? So they are lapel mics, and I actually, when I'm commentating, I will listen to what they're doing, so I can actually jump in commentating, so I know exactly what's going on the table. Everyone knows in the stream what's going on. I think it's something that is a must with live streaming tournaments nowadays, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
are you setting this up on your own?
Yep, at the moment, yeah. So I do my full setup. I generally take, depending on the location and how much is needed in terms of setup, about 3 to 6 hours to set up the stream. It takes about 2 to 3 to pack down, depending on if I've got help to do it.
Solid, man.
More than I would have expected. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You should see his setup, though. It's elaborate. It's an elaborate setup. It
sounds like you've just taken the... Sorry, Ben.
No, go.
I was just going to say, just coming back to what you got into it sounds like you've just taken directly from the esports book. Because that's the one thing that we always said about watching other live streams going, I want to hear the players talking about this. I don't want to hear the caster guessing what's happening.
Yeah.
If you watch any other esport, they know exactly what's happening because they've got all facets of the whole game. And hearing that that's how you do it that's the way. That is the only way to do it.
100%.
And as someone who's done commentary, trying to guess the game state, it's not necessarily the most fun to commentate either. So even if like there's periods where you want to mic players, feed them to yourself, but you talk over it, would be better. I can't remember. I don't know if you do that or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I do that because I have it on a soundboard right next to me. So I actually drop the players' mics when I talk. So then I'm not necessarily overlapping my audio too much with them. So I can control that volume manually rather than doing an OBS. It's a massive muck around in there. So doing it manually is just twisting of a knob and it's done. So yeah, and to your point, Lockie, like I very much agree with frontline gaming standpoint. I would love to see 40K at some point get to the point where it's an esport. Like, I agree with that vision. And, that's a part of why I love doing tournaments as well, is being able to do my part to see that vision come to fruition.
That was a nice run.
That's awesome. So lads, let's talk about, so you guys all of you combined put out a lot of content, and you're all, I have to say, you're all pretty well known in Australia. I would love to know kind of, I think I know what you're going to say to a couple of these answers, but I'd love to know kind of like, has there been any points where you go, you take a deep breath and you go, this is a lot, and I'm feeling a bit unmotivated right now, and kind of what kind of pushes you past that, like, and gets you over the end to keep going? Because, like, I've had a very busy work life, if I take from my point of view, I had a very busy work life recently, and it's been quite hard for me to find time to make sure I'm getting everything in there. But, like now I'm here and I'm doing it, I'm loving it. So, kind of what keeps you guys going? What's the motivation? Why don't we start off with anyone? Go, just go.
Who's going first?
Well, Chris seemed like he had an answer, so I reckon you
All right, Chris has been bust.
Chris, you're up,
Chris,
mate.
answer the question, man.
Look, for us personally and for myself, I think I work to deadlines. I find I get the best out of myself when I work to a deadline, and it kind of works in relation to having a weekly episodic series, right? So our audiences, they know that every Monday night they're going to get a Monday Night War battle report from us, and our patrons know that on the Friday before they're going to get that as well. So, so that's the deadline, and that's something that we need to strive towards maintaining and reaching every week. But in saying that, it gets really, really tough. There are weeks and months where you're putting so much in the content creation side that you actually lose sight a little bit of the hobby aspect of the hobby, and you might not pick up a paintbrush, for a few weeks or a couple of months. And it's happened to me on numerous occasions, and that's sadly that's the part of the hobby that I probably enjoy the most. So the painting and the creation side. So, but, you just have to work through it and trust that this is just the process. And I'm lucky enough to have an amazing group of guys who've got my back, who are always willing to put up their hand and say, okay, I'll take care of this, I'll take care of that. We're in the process of training a few of the other guys in terms of editing and content creation themselves. So we're just putting the steps in place to kind of future-proof the channel, so that, anyone can sort of put their hand up and take control at any point. And I guess just try and maintain a schedule for yourself as well, for your own mental health and for your own personal health.
You're almost normalizing it, really, aren't you? Like,
you have to.
You're like kind of going, well, it's Tuesday night. I usually do a lot of editing on Tuesday night after my Monday night recording, like that's kind of your Tuesday's editing and stuff like that. So Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of almost putting yourself into like a hobby / content routine, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and it's the work-life balance and the family balance is the trickiest one. Like I still work a full-time job. I'm a husband. I'm a father of a 5-year-old. So you're trying to juggle that, amongst putting out a weekly episode. It can be very challenging. But, you're just going to see, put that 5-year plan or that goal up somewhere and just continually look at it and see where you want to be. And your subconscious will just constantly strive towards that goal, I think.
Love it. That's
Sounds
brilliant.
great.
Good advice.
Who wants to
What
answer
about
next?
what about you, Lockie?
I feel like Chris, you're just taking all my answers. You're cheating.
That's why he got. That's why he was keen. That's why
Yeah, he's gonna go first.
Number one there.
I think the biggest thing that's helped me not because for me there was a point where this nearly stopped, or it did get too much. It didn't hit. We didn't hit the milestones that I was expecting to hit within the time frame that I'd given it, and sort of funding an entire channel like this from nothing, all off your own back, is a lot. It's similar, like I've got 2 kids, I run another company, like all these other things. So there's a lot trying to to make it all get to where you want it to be. And with that first deadline we didn't hit, and then a friend of mine go like, my biggest issue is that I have unrealistic timeline expectations of where things should be. Right? I'm that person that's like, I want it done yesterday, and it's usually a lot of pressure I put on myself for that. Like I'll put in that extra. I'm not yelling at other people, but it was getting more people involved, diversifying and spreading. Kind of like what Chris was saying, having the team.
Like
The
many
team
hands
really
make light
pulled
work sort
that
of thing?
through. Pardon?
Many hands make light work sort of deal.
100%. 100%. So basically, to give you perspective, where it was Dalton and myself running our club, prepping and writing player packs, doing scheduling for our events, doing all the bat reps, trying to paint most of the armies as well, and then run our Discord and moderate that. And it was hectic. And then he's got his personal life, I got the kids, yada yada yada, everything else, right? Too much. And then it was basically like, okay, well, how can we incentivize people to become involved? And anyway, so that helped massively. And the other thing that I've found that's actually helped a lot is Games Workshop. Their actual ability to be more keen on supporting their own product has actually helped a lot in terms of, if you're getting stale with the things that are going, this army just gets a new thing. Oh, cool. Let's who now is, because everyone has the armies they look after, right? Like that's how we've kind of structured that as well. Like you play these, and so one comes to, we'll argue like, oh, who wants to play World Eaters now, or like who gets Votan, or who gets whatever, and that's kind of helped to sort of, and then that's helped a lot. Events have also helped a lot, and pivoting the streams has been really cool. Me personally, it's my favorite thing to do. There's less front end, it's more sort of mid as it's going work, but it enables us to engage with more personalities within the wider Australian community. People like Adam Camilleri, people like Jeremy from WTC, Dean Simbeck, like all these guys that are either top tier players or at some level influential within the world. Where that's harder to organize when you go, oh hey, do you have time for an 8-hour film day, during the week or something or whatever, as opposed to doing on the stream. So having that social part being brought into what we do has definitely helped me, at least.
Because you guys have also got
sorry.
You guys have also got review content from GW, right? Talking about them being supportive. Has that helped out? Like, when did that come along?
Well, they don't directly support us, so we've just reviewed their content just out of wanting to. No. So we're trying.
On there, mate. There's an addendum
we're trying to at the moment. So I've spoken to a lot of people, on the back end, that have connections to Games Workshop, and the way they run their system is a very specific way, and there's kind of specific channels you have to sort of navigate through to get there. And that's kind of like another reason why we're trying to cover every base, showcase them, hey, we're doing events, we're doing review content, we're doing multiple of your game systems, we're doing the streams, we're doing the bat reps. Like, hey, Australia's not dead and dusted. You can actually, turn and have a look at the Oceania region and, maybe throw some support to the people that are working their butt off to showcase your product. So
Big
it will come.
light saying pick me.
Exactly. I think
And
all
paying
three
the
of
most
us
for
are
your
doing
models.
that. Yeah.
Hey, no. I'm in New Zealand, mate. We pay more, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm proud of that. Anyway.
So I think
also like
it'll
to
happen.
add-
It'll happen. Yes. Sorry, go Scott.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna add off the back of what you were saying. Look, I actually have it on good authority. GW almost came out here to stream the Oz Champs one year, and it did not happen, unfortunately. But they almost did.
And that's it. Like, if they're not going to do it, we'll just do it anyway and just say, hey, we're doing it. Just support us, right? Like, and that's most companies anyway that want to do stuff. Like, they don't actually want to do it. They just want to go, oh, you're already putting in the work. Cool. Here's some help. You just do your own thing. And as long as we're happy with it, then that's fine. And we're happy. I'm sure all three of us would be happy if Tomorrow Games Workshop was like, hey, do you guys want some early access to we're not going to be like, no, we want it a certain way. We'll toe that line.
No.
Like, of course.
I'd rather wait until months after the rest of the world for you remember the Tyranids Codex delays for Down Under?
So
apart from me, I don't know how, but I managed to get mine. So that was odd. But yeah, that was just a fluke through the system. I think I just ordered it and it just came 3 days later, and it wasn't meant to. That's all. That's all I can say.
So it wasn't really that one container that was under the Sydney Harbour Bridge? Isn't that the?
No, seriously, I ordered it.
That's the joke, right? all the delays is that all the boats stop in the harbour and get. That's. I got told that the other week. I was like, whenever there's Australian delays, there's just a mountain of 40k sitting at the bottom of the harbour.
Wait, so am I missing something? Did a boat go over under the harbour bridge and one container dropped off the back of it because it hit the bridge or something?
No idea. I don't know. All I know is I heard that walking into a store the other week. It was like, that's the running joke. If stuff's delayed in Australia, it's because the container fell off the ship and it's in the harbour in the harbour.
So, speaking of delays, should we get around to Scotty's answer to the question?
So I guess how do I keep things in balance? It's all about, I guess, knowing my goal and knowing what I want to achieve. So it's really easy, and I get mentorship for content creation and stuff, and so it can be really easy to just hit live, get the setup done, and just do a stream, do some painting, talk with the community, and it's done and dusted, right? It's that back end content, it's that getting that short form content out there and figuring out what you want to do for that short form, figuring out what you want to do for your long form content, creating those scripts. It does take a lot of time, so being able to balance time for yourself, I hit the gym 3 times a week and I'm pretty consistent on that to look after myself. And, I use that as a mental health avenue as well, just to get rid of crappy emotions, right? Spending time with my wife and making sure that I'm spending time at home, particularly with our first child due soon. And making sure that family is also a priority. Thanks, Alex.
Congrats, mate. Congrats.
Cheers. And making sure that the priorities are right and knowing that, okay, if I have to drop a stream or if I have to drop a piece of content, that I'm communicating that with my audience and my community so that they know, okay, this is what's going on. This is why it's happening. Recently, I've actually had a really bad throat, for an example, and I had to take a week and a half off doing streams. And I just let my community know. And I'm like, hey guys, really sorry, this throat is still killing me. But they were like, no, we want to make sure that you're doing, getting better and at your best when you're doing the streams and content. And also kind of like what Chris was saying, front loading as much as possible, building up that content backlog of not necessarily evergreen content, but of content that you're like, okay, I know that if I release this next week or in a month's time, it's going to be fine. Yeah. And it can happen where, what you were saying, Lockie, particularly more the competitive side of stuff, where it's oh, you're doing a competitive 2K bat rep and it's a bat at the start of slate drops. And it's well, there goes that 8-hour recording day.
Now it's a competitive 2.5K bat rep.
Yeah. And I guess it's just really keeping in perspective what you're wanting to do. So for me as well, I've always viewed this as a hobby, but I've come at it from the professional side. I want to make sure that, yeah, I'm doing this all in my free time, like much like Chris, I'm much like Lockie. I got a full-time job as well, and you know, doing that, family, all that stuff. But making sure that, you know, when you're going to do these things, when you're going to create content, that you are time efficient, that you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, you know how to go about it, and you're improving as you do it. So a good piece of advice, I know this leads into another question, but it's like, if you improve 1% on your next 100 videos, you've improved 100% by that 100th video. Whereas if you stay the same, or if you drop 1%, then you're going to be at 0% by the end of that 100 videos. So it's just keeping that growth mindset as well. And, you know, and Lockie, I know you said you're setting high expectations, unrealistic expectations. It's all about not looking at the metrics for me. It's great. Yeah, sub count's good. Viewers are great. But you know what? If I'm there, I'm talking with people. People are commenting saying, yep, I love the content. I love what you're doing. At the end of the day, as long as someone learns something from what I'm doing, as long as I've provided a place where people can hang out and chill and escape what they're doing in their life, then, you know, that's job done in my eyes.
100%.
Also,
Yeah, it's a good point, man.
Scott, you've just irked like the math side of me a little bit, by the way. Like, if you improve 1% every video for 100 videos, it's more than 100%.
I know where
This
this
is
is
finding interested. I'm upset. Yeah,
I'm a math head too,
actually-
Alex, so I get it.
Yeah,
it's actually 270%.
I could see his eye tweak when you said that. Oh no, here we go. Get ready for this one. There's one,
I don't know
one
if-
really
I don't know if-
interesting thing between what you guys say, right, is that. Sorry to interrupt. So one thing interesting, guys. One thing says is it's very much the interaction side from the people you're either doing it for, or like the boots on the ground thing. Like Scotty, you were saying, someone interacts with you in your stream, no matter it be one person or 100 people. You know, you, Lockie, the guys at the events you run, right? And you know, you, Chris, with just, you know, the comments you must get, your Discords and stuff, and the Patreons and stuff like that. So all you guys have the crossover there. It just kind of shows you that interaction is a huge part, and is really the fundamental reason why you guys, and us to a certain extent as well, is why we do it, right? So you know, and that's a pretty easy motivating factor. And also having, you know, Chris and Lockie having a crew around them also to, you know, keep them pushing and stuff like that. So hats off to you, Scotty, for you know, just kind of having it all inside you, mate.
Yeah, man, that's
Driving
next level. I would have been like, nah, throwing that towel in while just on my own. No way.
I'll be honest with you guys. I've hit the point where I've got more events asking me to attend that I can actually do. So I'm actually in the process of building a team.
Dude,
Well,
suffering from success. Plus, he's not doing it on his own, right? He's just like casually roping in like 10 different people every weekend. So he's like, he's not actually on his own, guys.
Well, after this anyway, you're probably going to get an email from me about a whole bunch of stuff for next year. So, because we've got 13 events we're running next year. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, so we're really
I
pushing out.
I hope to try and make it down for one then.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
But the other, I mean, Scotty, Chris, you probably can speak to this as well. But like, I find one of this last thing is that actually seeing the top guys globally, that they're still getting the numbers that they were, you know, like that it's still a thing, that it can become a day job, that it can become so kind of like that. Obviously goal orientation and goal perspective is very important, but also seeing that big end goal. Yeah, it might not be tomorrow, it might be 5 years, might be 10 years, whatever, but it's still there. That helps a lot. You know, like Tactics are still doing this crazy stuff. You know, all this stuff's still happening. You're like, the dream's alive, everybody. The dream's alive. You know, that helps.
100%.
Yeah, the proof that the dream is attainable and that others before us have achieved that is what drives us all to get to that level, right? So we know that the guys from Tactics and all the major players have been doing it for, you know, longer than us. That's fair to say, but they've reached a point now where they're doing it full time, where they've got other people on full time wages. So it's exciting. It's an exciting prospect, and it's mental to think that a Warhammer 40k YouTube channel can reach a level of that magnitude. But, it's exciting. And I think, look, we can all achieve that. There's no reason why not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
and that's what's
something
awesome
that
about
I
chats
learned.
like this as well. Oh, sorry. So go Scott.
Yeah.
I keep on going in hard. I think it's my lag. So you go Scott.
No, you're good, Benny. You're good. I was just gonna say, something that one of my mentors has always said is content creation isn't a zero-sum game. If you're gaining followers, it doesn't mean that someone else is losing them. So I think the rising tide lifts all ships. As content creators in general, as we improve and we carve out what we do, why we do it, we find our niche, we find our community. It's great, we've got our little pocket that is going to support us for what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. And you slowly grow that over time. And there's cross-pollination. There's whole heaps of different aspects to it. So yeah, 100%.
Scott, I don't know what you're on
that's a good
about
point.
no cross pollination and stuff. We got you guys all on here so we could try and steal all your followers and then just send you off. Not everybody. Yeah.
Well, look, lads, I think that let's I'd love to talk about, right. I just want to bring attention to Aiden. Don't put any of the questions up yet, Kelsey, but Aiden has put some amazing questions in. I think that a couple of those should be addressed towards the end of the show. But I think we've combined a couple of our questions in that last one there. I'd love to talk about, and this goes to all of you, and I know you've all got crackers, right? And this is what I've been looking forward to asking you. Let's start with Lockie. I want to know.
Are we going to do some quick fire questions here?
No. We'll do it later.
Okay.
We'll do it later. I want to hear an anecdote about not an anecdote. What's kind of the most awkward or no, I don't want to say stuff up because that sounds like I want to hear.
I can already answer it for you. So you're talking about what's the most awkward thing that's either happened either behind camera or on camera.
Yeah.
So if you guys have ever watched any of our pre-recorded stuff, for our 40k content, we run a skit right at the front at the start of every app, right? Getting people who don't understand the concept, because we say to them hey, we're going to do a skit. They don't get it. They don't know it's essentially acting, right? We are literally acting a scene there, and you get some of the most inappropriate stuff that happens, but also people that just are so weird that just freeze. They know they're going to be on camera, but the moment they're okay, we're going to run this line, and then we block it out. We literally do it like a proper scene, and they're just and freak out, and you're all right,
full on deer in the headlights.
Yeah, bro, 100%. Or they just forget the volume of their voice or do something really strange. And we're all like that. It took the main guys a while to get used to that, but that was pretty funny. That was always something that always comes up. It's either going to work and it nails straight away, and sometimes you just need someone. You're like, this is going to be easy. We're going to kill it. It's going to be funny. And then just some of the sexual innuendos and stuff that's in some of those skits that just end up being so on the nose, and you're just oh god, you're filming it going, how's this going to be received?
Scott and his 2 weeks of having a sore throat, right?
The Gene Stealer one. If you guys ever go back, and I think it's I don't know.
I will look at it.
It's pretty old now, but if you watch the skit from I think it's Gene Stealer's verse Custodes. So when the Gene Stealer book came out, that skit is hilarious. So that was very weird. So there you go. There's that one.
Alrighty.
What about you,
a question
Chris?
for everyone? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have to hear. I know everyone's got one. So.
Yeah. Oh, look, for us, I think one of the more memorable, funny moments for us was actually in the heart of the lockdown. So we had launched our channel a couple of months before. We sort of gained a bit of momentum with our release schedule. Lockdown hit pretty hard, and then literally none of the guys could come around to the studio to film. So we sort of danced around a few other ideas, released a couple of podcasts, little things just to get by. A few weeks later, they sort of they lessened the lockdowns a little bit, and we were able to sort of meet in parks for a few hours. And so myself and Boyd had the idea to set up a gazebo in the middle.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. We set up this gazebo in the middle of absolute nowhere. It was just this like empty grassland that was just like, you know, an acre of like empty grassland. And we filmed, we took the cameras down, we took everything, and it was the windiest bloody day in Melbourne. And halfway during turn 2, like the gazebo started, like it literally blew away, and we had to like try and chase it. And all these people were coming in to see like what we were doing, and like it was it was a lot of fun.
You would have creeped out those people so hard.
It's like, what are these weirdos doing?
Around lockdown too, they're like, it's a comment thing that someone probably left there with like, it's a conspiracy, they're doing something weird.
Yeah, they're doing something really weird.
It's like a Ouija board with models.
Yeah.
All right, what about you, Scott?
I've met Boyd too. He's champion. He's a champion. Then I can imagine that would have been hilarious with him.
Yeah, he is. He is a lot of fun, that bloke. Yeah, absolute fun.
Scotty, you've got some good live tournament ones, right? Haven't you?
I do. So first off is false starting. So turning on my commentator cam and I haven't unmuted. That's a good one.
Awkward.
You're about to kick off a round and you're going, and then chat's like, "Scotty, you're not unmuted." And it's like, damn it, now I gotta stop the recording, go back, restart, done. And then I gotta say, the one that takes the cake from tournaments, it's an unfortunate story that this happened. One of the games at Terracon, one of the players dropped a Forge World Custodes Caladius, and it shattered. And it was so gut-wrenching on stream to watch that.
I heard that. I was there for that, and I was at one of the.
Oh, you heard like across the room?
Yeah. No. I was at the table like because this year at Terracon there was a bit more. There was less of a gap between the stream tables and the rest of them because they'd filled up. Because 2020 was just in between the Victorian lockdown, so there was like no big Vics there, and then this one it was like 100 player, so they had there was all the tables were close to street hall, and they had this crap most of the hall apart from the back, the piss heads out the back basically, pretty much, which was pretty most of us, right? But you know, like the whole, it went silent. And
that's a sound.
I remember speaking. It was just before. I think it was like the end that round 3, or it was just before a break or something.
I think it was round 4.
Seeing you, and you being like, that was a whole like Caladius that dropped on the floor.
It's a sound no gamer wants to hear, eh?
Yeah.
No, because like you hear something clatter to the floor, you look around and someone's just like knocked over a bag of dice. You just sort of like point and laugh, and maybe some people are helpful. But if it's models, it's just like, oh no, and just everyone in the room is like sympathetic. Yeah.
And the floors at Terracon are concrete, so the base went the entire model. Like, the guy was shattered, and I really felt so sorry for him that it happened on stream. Yeah.
Mean man.
Okay, so concrete floors though, because I've hosted an event, and one of the funniest things I found with concrete floors is dice bounce a lot, right? Like, you hear like one die bounce, and it like skitters for like 30 seconds, like halfway across the room. That bit is hilarious. Oh boy.
So lads, before we get into these questions, because I think there's some really good questions there to be answered, mainly from Aiden, but I'd love to talk about those. Would be kind of, what advice would you have for guys who, you know, watch your channels or have watched any sort of 40k content, or even just I think like tabletop wargaming content is probably a fair kind of range to say, because it's not always the easiest to. You've really got to have a right angle and you know, have like your goals in mind of what you want to achieve from it. Like what would be your advice to people who are looking to get into it or wanting to dabble with kind of any facet of it? So it can be from more of like a specific, if one of you guys wants to talk about getting into a battle reports or wants to talk about it more holistically, like, you know, go for it. So why don't we start with you, Scotty?
Yeah. So I guess this leans into something that I'm pretty big a part of, because the mentoring program I'm a part of, I do the community moderation. I do some sessions there as well. So I actually do a lot of like content creation coaching and stuff there. Really falling in love with the process. Like that is probably the biggest piece of advice that I can give anyone that's looking to do it. And I'm not sure about you gentlemen, but if anyone has questions or anything, I haven't met someone that isn't willing to talk about it. If you're like very polite and you go, hey, I'm looking to get into this, like, is there any tips or tricks you're able to provide? So, you know, my DMs are always open for that. I'm always happy to talk about content creation and helping people in that sphere, because it's, you know, where you start off, you mightn't know what you want to do or how you want to do it. And talking to someone about it will help you externally create this bounce back board, this feedback that you're like, you can bounce an idea and go, oh, what about this? And it's like, it gets you to think. And so that's something I've really found my mentorship helpful with. And so, yeah, I'm willing to help out other people with that as well. But yeah, falling in love with the process would be my number one tip.
Yeah. Just to quickly bounce off that, like this whole show that Sam, Ben, and I do, and Alex, if he can make it, where it relies on people being approachable, right? Like we just go, hey, you've done a thing. Do you want to come talk about it? And
We don't have
like,
anything
clearly...
interesting to talk about for our own shows. Like, we don't have guests.
Yeah.
We don't have guests to bring on, right? Like we're nothing. So, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like people broadly pretty approachable if you like have the right sort of attitude. So yeah.
Especially Australian ones, in my opinion. Like you can, and I'm not in a bias. Like you can approach like anyone, most people across the world, and you'll get a great friendship. But Australians, you see them at an event, and you know they're a content creator. Like all of a sudden, you know, like I've helped, and been the person who's been asking for help from, you know, both sides of that, and it's never. It might have felt awkward the first time I asked, but then it never felt awkward again after that. Like, and because, you know, it's really good. It's amazing.
I can attest to that as well. Like, even, I mean, I asked Chris for some help early on about stuff to do with certain cameras and bits and pieces, you know, like, so, and prior to that had asked some other channels that exist outside of our borders and, you know, got nothing. So that, for example, is on the money, 100% true. Being approachable is key.
I can add a couple other things quickly, sort of related, in that people that like do 40K content production, right? They're just like people with a microphone and, or in Scotty's case, like several cameras and webcams and such, right? But you know, but like they're just like a dude, right? Like they're not actually super duper famous. They work a normal job. Which is funny because when like Adam Camilleri came over to the tournament in Auckland, right? Like one of the guys there was like, "Oh yeah, Adam, like it was like not idol, but like
starstruck."
Like star. No, not star, but they were like, "Oh yeah, I really look up to you," or something like that. Funny. Which is funny because I think the guy was like head and shoulders taller than him as well. But yeah, so like that was funny. That's like one of the few ways you could get like slightly awkward responses if you're like too nervous almost, and be like, "Oh my gosh, this person's so amazing." Like, no, they're just a dude. Like, usually a pretty friendly dude that like does some things well. But yeah.
I think another key thing that I found, and I learned this from games, and this is what I took from working in video games and put this into practice here is do your research. Like look at what your audience is. Look at what are your competitors? You know, why would someone come to me rather than go to them? And it's hard to. That's how I approached it anyway when beginning. But it's sometimes it's a lot harder. It's easier said than done, I should say. If you don't have a lot of experience in it, but sort of coming out of the gate going, well, if there's products like, say, Tabletop Tactics, level quality, or like Legends of Lore quality in terms of the production value, and I'm not meeting that par, why are people coming to me? And if you can't meet that, then what is your hook? Like, what is that thing that's making you a little bit unique? And it doesn't always have to be the same. I'm not saying that we all have to do the exact same thing in any format, but there are levels that I think that when people come into it, you kind of want to be reaching that level, or at least rapidly trying to get to that level as quick as you can. And then also, and figuring out that niche thing, because everyone has something that's a little bit unique. Like our thing is kind of like our skit thing, and we're a bit more laid back, especially with our streams, and a bit more of that Aussie larrikin kind of sexual craziness that we kind of like approach outside, right? That's our shtick, right? And we're proud of that. That's, you know, we're risky rollers. We're crazy. That's it. So that's kind of our thing, you know, and we kind of found that early on. It came naturally, but that might not come naturally to someone who's not doing that. So I'm not saying you have to force it, but be open to whatever it is that will probably come. If you recognize it, hold it and grab it, and then just run with that, and then and then that will grow, and it will become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it will be your unique thing, and no one can take that away from you, and that's what's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess my advice is similar to what Lockie has just been talking about, and my advice would be to have a think about your branding overall and how you're going to stand out in a YouTube 40K market that is flooded with content creators. Like, it is flooded. So it could be a few things, you know, like branding itself. It could be the way you present your content. You know, you could present it differently in a unique way that, you know, others haven't thought of yet. Or it could be just the overall theme or the way you play the game. And I guess just to forget the current trends, and just stay true to yourself and your goals and your strengths, because ultimately your audience will see through all the bullshit if you're not true to yourself. And no matter what sort of content you're creating, there will always be an audience who will flock to you and will continue to flock to you every week because they enjoy the content that you make. So, yeah.
Being genuine.
It's all great advice. Yeah.
Yep. Everyone's got a mother. Everyone will have some regular viewership.
Brilliant.
Guys, I got so nervous with like the half-second delay between that joke. Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, why don't we have a look at some of Aiden's questions now? Because
oh man, I got to click buttons now.
So Aiden said the question for everyone: why 40K? Why this? And I think that's actually, like, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I wish I'd written that on my notes. But well done, Aiden. But why 40K, lads? Like a couple of you said that you'd done video games, or you come from video games, right? And let's face it, video games is a far bigger market. You could say it's more saturated for that reason, but you could also say that there's actually a lot more viewers that pull you. And like Taus mentioned, you're not really taking. I think it was Taus that mentioned you're not really taking kind of viewers from anyone. You're just getting them. Was that you, Taus, that said that?
Yeah, Scotty.
I said the name.
Yeah,
Scotty.
I joked about it afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's probably what I remember. But
I said it louder.
Yeah, you know, people can follow multiple content creators and be really into it. So, like, what made you guys hone down on 40K?
Can I answer for Scotty?
I'd like to take this one, actually, Alex. I've got a bit to add. Okay. So I think I had touched on this.
Tarkov. That was going to be my answer, so you go.
Right. No, actually, so for Christmas in 2019, I actually got Dave Taylor's book. The I've got it on my shelf. Just give me 1 second. Where is it?
Man's got props.
It's this thing, Armies, Legions, and Hordes by Dave Taylor Miniatures. He's an Aussie guy, but he's over in the UK. And it really kind of inspired me in such a way to be like, well, I've been playing 40K since I was 14. I came in the start of 5th edition from the day dot of Black Reach release. And I love the game. I love the community. I've got so many friends that I've made through the community. And I've got such an experience in this hobby, in this game, through playing these editions, through running events, through being a community leader and, you know, being a pillar in the local ACT community for a lot of years. And I'm like, I want to share this experience that I have, not just with the people around me locally, but also interstate, internationally, and just really start to share the experience that I have so people can learn from the mistakes I've made, and so that they don't fall into those same pitfalls. And very similar to the way Dave Taylor does when he talks about his painting projects and how he goes about them in the book. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of why I chose 40K, because I've now got 16 years experience under my belt for it. So
Yeah, wow.
It's also pretty convenient
14,
that then the Aussies like turned out to be pretty good at the game, so you can like share that with the world as well, eh?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Some Aussies.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
ones that matter, right? That's the ones.
Yeah,
that
that's
matter.
right. That's right. What about you, Lockie? Why 40K? You came from video games, like you said. Not as complex as
Yes.
Escape from Tarkov, I hope, but you know, like,
No. So the games I was in was was game designer for a mobile game development company
Oh,
that's
okay.
now quite large into it was drifting car games. Anyway,
Oh.
so for me, the 40K catch was actually the lore, the universe that got me back into it, like as an adult at the tail end of 8th edition. I love film and I love books and novels and stories. And, you know, at the end of 8th, which was 2019, I was sort of pretty over what, you know, Hollywood and stuff was doing with movies and TV shows, and video games were pretty stale as well. And I just needed something to kind of fill that urge of that story. And then I just remembered, 40K, so I used to read the Horus Heresy when I was a kid and all that stuff. And then that's what hooked me back in. And then, contrary to kind of what you're saying about this, 40K is definitely saturated from a YouTube point of view. However, the saturation compared to video games is like a 1%.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
And then it was the fact that there's a market to do it. So, and I don't mean from a financial point of view, I just mean like to do it, like in Australia. So, like I said, kind of at the beginning, there wasn't really a lot of people. It's not like we're in the UK and you've got, you know, competing channels sort of all over the place of varying quality and stuff like that. Like it just didn't really exist. So I'm like, yeah, it's saturated. From my perspective, I was thinking at the time, it's saturated in one way. But I was like, man, if I could do this in Australia, like it'd be huge, right? Like it'd be massive. Like it would be a thing. It'd be legit. And then it just so happened to be within a universe that I really love. Like the OTT of 40K, that's the killer. Like I could stop painting models, because there's these days now with what you can do with printing and stuff like that, of other IPs that exist out there with crazy awesome models, and from an art point as well, because I was a 3D modeler, the physical art stuff, love that. But if that ended, wouldn't be the end of the world. The game side, there's a lot of other really, even arguably better designed games from a competitive standpoint, narrative standpoint, whatever. But the lore, there is no lore that exists, in my personal opinion. There is no universe like 40K. And it is just bonkers and stupid and awesome. And
it is.
That's one of the things.
All of those things.
Yeah. Keeps me going, because it's just like, what are they gonna do next? Like, stupid. That made no sense. Like, cool. Let's just go with that. You know. So
Yeah.
that's why 40K.
Brilliant.
Yeah, for me personally, I think similarly to Lockie, I think the narrative really spoke to me. And like I said in the top of the stream, I only came across tabletop wargaming literally, 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm really fresh. But I had that sort of filmmaking experience with me. But it was actually a friend. So a friend of mine a few years ago was talking about, some tournament that he was going to go to, and plays, I'm going to go play Warhammer 40K. It's really cool. You should come check it out. It was this event called Arc 40K here in Melbourne. So, Australia's biggest Warhammer event. And I went down and I got sucked in, man. Like it's the tables. Like, honestly, when you see someone who doesn't know anything about let alone 40K, but just tabletop wargaming in general. As soon as you come across a fully decked out 6x4 table filled with amazing terrain, pristine looking models, you just get suckered into the universe, and you start bringing your own experiences of what you're seeing into your own narrative. You start, visualizing what's happening on the board. And that's what happened to me as a spectator. Like, I literally just, for 2 days while my mate was playing, I just walked around 80 odd tables, all with different kinds of terrain, all with different kinds of worlds, and watching two guys, roll some dice and have a bit of fun and just play out these epic moments. And I didn't really understand how big 40K was at that time. It wasn't until then I decided to take a plunge into the hobby. I kind of figured that, this is it's pretty big. It's a pretty big deal. So
I could blow some money on this.
Yeah. But funnily enough, it kind of, I do remember it as a kid. Like, I remember seeing it because I remember Games Workshop actually used to have a few stores inside major shopping centres here in Melbourne. And I remember as a kid, my parents and I just, wandering through High Point Shopping Centre, walking past a GW store, and, it looked really intriguing. You see all the guys sitting down on their stools, painting models and all the setups. And, but, my parents were just like, none of that. Nah. Look at the prices.
We can't afford that.
With their financial senses, their spidey senses tingling, no,
Yeah,
this is
that's
expensive.
right.
We'll steer you away from that store.
Run along. Yeah.
But yeah.
So
How good was that, Chris? Back then, that you go into a Warhammer store and you'd rock up as a kid and they'd go, all right, you've got that unit, and you don't know what you're doing. You're like, what? And they're like, you got that guy, and they're just like, okay, roll these dice, and then he's like, he just jumped over, he's like, and you're like, what? I'm seeing this happen in my head right now, and I don't even know what's going on. You're like, that guy died. Oh my god.
Well, that's what happened to me 4 years ago.
I mean, dude, that still happens in the studio all the time.
Happens.
We played Heresy. Dreadnought comes in with Chain Fist, cuts up Rhino. It's like rah rah rah, and we're like, it just teleports you back to being a little kid, right? Like, you just
so good.
Yeah.
So this is another question from Aiden. I'm going to go.
I got to bring it up.
So who do you guys admire in terms of 40K content? And I think that's really
let's
cool.
Try quick fire this one, surely, because there's a bunch of questions to get through as well. Yeah.
I reckon that this is probably Aiden's
Ben,
last
you can go first.
Question.
Ben, who do you admire? I'll put you under the bus first. Yeah.
This is going to sound like a little bit of a cop out, but I really admire anyone who's given it a crack, and I admire people who are not just trying to do competitive content. I love everyone I love the people who are highlighting the community. I like people who are highlighting the narrative side of it, because as much as I enjoy competitive 40K, and that's pretty much mainly my main focus in terms of actually playing the games these days. I'm like you guys. I read all the books. I love all that stuff. I love all the narrative, and there's nothing that gives bigger BDE, right, than getting a painted army out and chucking it on the table and being like, check out my army. That's the best, right?
Yeah,
that's the best. That's my favorite part of it. And so I love content creators who have more than just one interest in the hobby are kind of the ones that I really admire. The people who like me, who like all parts of it. So that's so. I really like. I enjoy all Australian content, because I think Australian content, that's, might not be where I'm from, but it's where I reside, and that's where I play and what I prefer. But I also enjoy, the rest of the network we're on. The rest of I enjoy StatCheck. I kind of pick and choose from everywhere, right? So sorry. I'll hurry along. Why don't we go on to Taos next and see if he can get underneath my time.
All right. So first one that comes to mind probably would be the normal blokes. those guys are hilarious. I've listened to like every episode since like 40ish or something, and they're up to like 118 now. Yeah, they're just because those are really good players. Happen to be Aussies, which is probably what leads into the next bit. They are just hilarious. We had Liam and Denise on, I think. And yeah, like they're so funny and like really competitive. So yeah, there, Ben. That is how you do it quickly. Anyone want to go next?
You got me, mate. You got me.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting it.
I'm happy to jump in next.
Yeah, go
So
on,
I'd say
Scott.
for me, in terms of tournament stuff, it's been pretty obvious. Frontline Gaming, and their production value of what they do for their tournament coverage. In terms of like the amount of cameras and the amount of angles and the production quality in terms of some things as well. Also, War Games Live, Joe. Is some of those elements there as well. In terms of just 40K content in general, I got to give a shout out to the Preferred Enemies podcast. They're more casually competitive. So yes, they do take a bit of the competitive side, but also the casual side, the narrative side, and they're just a group of guys that have been going for 10 years. So, if a podcast can be going for 10 years so consistently, then what's to stop someone like myself or any of us here from being able to be like, look, let's just truck on. Let's just keep on getting it out there and keep on creating content to bring 40K in Australia to the rest of the world.
Here.
Alrighty.
I'll go next.
All right, Lockie.
Mine's probably it's going to be a bit cliche and lame, but
Just go on,
tactics.
mate.
Tactics for me is probably pretty up there in terms of how Lawrence
Tabletop
Tactics,
Yeah.
in the UK. So how Lawrence, the owner and the runner of the majority of all that, has pretty much started that from his house on his own with a couple of friends, then convinced other friends to start playing, and now be this powerhouse that it is of 8 full-time employees and all these bits and pieces, moving between different games and narrative, competitive, league stuff, like all this. That is just, dude's amazing. And then SNL, mainly because they're doing something that I also want to do, which is not only have the bat rep stuff, but also the event stuff. And like No Retreats is something that that whole concept is just absolutely amazing, and it's something
That's
that
a bucket list thing for me.
Well, that's
So
what we're working
Yeah.
towards. Going to be doing something like that in the next probably 2 or 3 years. So,
Oh wow,
Who's SNL?
that's
Sorry,
cool.
Lockie. Just like for someone who's not.
what's that? Sorry.
You said SNL?
Yeah.
Yeah, who are
SNN,
they?
isn't it?
For me
I
being...
think.
Oh, so SNL.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could have been me mishearing.
No, you were right. I did say SNL. I was watching Saturday Night Live the other day. That's probably why. And it's purely from taking the standard of what you expect from an event and just elevating it to something higher like that, and then on top of what else they're doing and breaking the mold. Anyone who's kind of doing something different and trying to pivot it in a new way, I'll sort of take my hat off to as well. Is pretty awesome.
All right,
Yeah,
Chris.
and look, for me personally, it's definitely Tabletop Tactics. Lawrence has sort of set the bar there. But in terms of for us jumping the gun and starting YouTube, it was always Play on Tabletop. When they launched their channel, their level of production value is insane. And it kind of spoke to me in a way as a filmmaker, the types of content that can be produced in a cinematic way. And I feel like, bringing a cinematic touch to Warhammer 40K on YouTube is an exciting thing. So, Nick, he spends so much time not only on set filming, but, throws in many, many, many hours during the week editing. And now he's got, 3 or 4 editors, I think, on his team editing his battle reports. So as an editor myself, I think that is something that I'd love to have on board someday, because at the moment, 18 to 20 hours of editing, whilst I love the job and I love doing it, is it takes its toll. So seeing a team of people who are producing quality battle reports like that with a team behind him is really inspirational for me.
Yeah, I think they say something like it's like 40 hours of editing for one of their like 40K and 40-minute videos.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's
just
the thing.
it's outrageous.
The shorter you make the video, the more the editing is,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Correct.
yeah, it's their editing pro. Because we thought about that as a potential option as well, and then we were like, nah, no way. Like, we don't have the time to sit and edit that. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm.
You just need it, like everything to be in the like orc speed guard meta and just be like, all right, everyone's tabled real quick. We can maybe cut this down in time.
Yeah. Look, the custodies are the best. If we had custodies v custodies every week, would be amazing because
Or Knights v
it'd be
Knights,
like,
right?
yeah, it'd be like 10 models aside, nice and quick.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel very
Yeah.
seen. I've got knights and custodies on the shelf over there. See, earlier bit of like most expensive place, those ones are cheap. All right, Ben, you posted privately. Do you want to keep us moving along? You got something to highlight?
No,
next?
so I want to hear what's so do you guys have any shout outs you'd like to do to your crew or to your supporters or anything like that? So we're gonna probably try and wrap this up after this. So why don't we hear some shout outs? Give us your crew.
Yeah, sure, I can start here.
Sorry, I should have actually introduced someone into it, shouldn't I? Really?
That's okay.
Don't everyone speak at once.
I got it.
No?
That's all good. Look, I'd love to thank, all the guys from Legends and Lore. So that's Lachlan, Jack, Macca, and Boyd, and all the other guys who are in and out of our production from our little Facebook group. Massive thanks to, of course, all of our patrons who, they keep the lights on. They keep this little neon. Oh, here we go. They keep that little neon light on for us. So, and it's just good to know that we've got a great bunch of people who are tuning in every week to just follow what we're doing. And, they seem to really enjoy what we're doing. So many thanks to all of them. And, to Gap Games, our major sponsor. So they are up in Queensland. So we have some nice local content guys who produce really good miniatures and sell 21% off GW. Really thanks to them for all their support. And, that's about it. Hit us up on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a sub, all that sort of jazz. We're on Patreon. We've actually got a really interesting, unique approach to our patron tiers. So we actually have the opportunity for someone to essentially become a named model in one of our little Space Marine armies. So, which was provided from the actual army was provided by Gap Games. So, and we painted it in our channel colors. We printed little Legends and Lore and Gap Game decals to put on the shoulder pads. And it's become really popular, so a lot of people are jumping on board there. We're
really
actually going to do
a question. Do you have a Patreon tier to become a Primaris Lieutenant?
Well,
the whole army of just Primaris Lieutenants.
So actually, like speaking of, Lucky was talking about tactics. We actually had Beard from Tactics make one of our jump captains, which we fondly named Brother Beard in his honor.
Right, really? Dude,
yeah. So that was really fun. But look, it's just that level of interaction that I love with the patrons, and they sort of get behind seeing their models and see that that one little sergeant make that charge roll into the opponent. It's all those little stories that add up for us. So yeah, thanks to everyone, and thanks to you guys for having us. It's been fun to chat to everyone and to see some familiar faces. And thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to queue up Lockie next because he is the next link I've got in the comments to highlight.
Again, Chris, you're just stealing my answers, bro. Like all my shout outs are going to be
Yeah, you also wanted to thank Chris's patrons.
Oh, 100%. all of Chris's guys. None of my guys.
Yeah.
Took the words right out of my mouth. No, big thanks to all our teams. So that's Dalton, Lawrence, Ed. Who else is there?
Oh no,
who else is
blanking on
there?
you,
Oh,
buddies.
jeez. Jake, Carl, Charlie, all members of our Discord, big ups. Big thanks to all our patrons. As always, you guys are absolutely amazing. And all the other people that come and assist us with our events. So it's like Dean Sinbeck and Jeremy Marigold and those guys that are trying to help push our event side of things. And then just anyone who ever tunes in, anyone who comments, like, you're a legend. Anyone who is trying to help make Risk Gorillas in any way be bigger. And then big thanks to all our sponsors as well: Dice Arcade, Battle Maps, Trey Tinker, and then Miniature Scenery. And then I've got to do a huge shout out to my mate Nate at Think Loud Creative, who does all our pre-recorded stuff. So he's an absolute legend, been a friend of mine since high school. Helps put a non-nerd player perspective on things, which is absolutely hilarious because he's like, you guys are so lame. Like, just does all the time. It's so funny. And then I got a big shout out to my missus. She's so helpful with letting me do all the things that I do, you know, with 2 kids and stuff like that. Sometimes Tuesday night, I'm just not around for the whole night. So I got to throw her in there, and she's always been a big supporter of what we're doing here. So big ups to her.
Awesome.
Nice. All right, Scotty.
All right. Well, for me, shout out to all the tournaments that have had me throughout the past 2 years. It's, a lot of teething problems, a lot of learning from covering different events, but it's been awesome to travel to Terracon, up to Maitland, to Sydney, even covering events here at Canberra. It's been awesome to be able to cover events. And if you guys do want me at your events, feel free to reach out to me via my Facebook page.
It will be in 5 minutes.
No worries at all, Lucky. Shout out to Lewis and Jolt Games. He's been someone that I've been able to bounce a lot of things off when it comes to content and just ideas. He's been really awesome. It's a great store as well, Ben. You've been down in recent
Is
weeks.
that the
to
store
store.
that
Yeah, it's
Sam's on
amazing.
event at?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, people look at Jolt Games. It is ridiculously nice. They've got actually nice proper wooden tables all spread out. There's so much nice lighting. Yeah.
The
Every time
tables
Sam
are
posts
about
pictures.
they're about between 3 and 4 foot. So instead of bending over at a 2-foot trestle, you're actually standing up half the time, and they're like at waist height. It's awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, and shout out to everyone that's supported me, like the mentorship program that I'm part of, Pipeline, that's run by Stone Mountain 64 and Snoopé. Massive shout out to them because they've contributed so much to where I am today. All of my subs on YouTube and Twitch. My Ko-Fi supporters there as well. Different platform, but very similar to Patreon. And yeah, if you guys want to find me anywhere, feel free to search up ScottyD49. I'm on Facebook. TikTok is ScottyD49. Twitch is ScottyD49. YouTube is ScottyD49. Instagram is ScottyD49_gaming. And again, that contact email is ScottyD49.gaming@gmail.com if you want to reach out for any events. But I will let you guys know on a sneak. I know Ben's already in on this, but there is a rebrand coming in to help me cover more events in the Australian tournament scene. And I'm looking forward to kicking that off February next year with the start of the ITC season here in Australia.
Ooh, cool.
Very cool.
So yeah,
Cool.
stay tuned for that.
Scotty wins the rattling off links competition.
Yeah.
And
Beat
so
that,
I
Sal.
guess I've got the tough. Yeah, I can't. But those of you that are still here after all this, you're watching this on you might be listening on a podcast feed. But yeah, we were live streaming this, which you can see. I think this is maybe one of the best ones to look at because there's the pretty lights in the background of all these 3 much more professional content creators. But yeah, to support the Best in Tabletop Network, there is a YouTube that you can hit a join button. There's 2 tiers of that: 1 to get bonus content, 1 to get access to the Discord. And if you're just interested in the Discord, you can hit the Patreon. Plus, there is a merch store at location I don't know the link for because I don't usually do this, but I'm sure if you start clicking around links on YouTube pages and such, you'll find those. And you might also find these 3 wonderful gentlemen's channels. And yeah,
I'm gonna get Scotty
Alright.
to do our plugs next, mate. But,
Yeah, just do like a pre-recorded bit and like hit
Yeah.
the video clip and have him come. Yeah.
Mine too.
Likewise, I think this should be brought in for every
Yeah.
guest to do
I think-
everyone's
Oh,
plugs
God.
like all the
Well,
time.
look,
Yeah.
Because Lockie, Scotty's covering your next event, right? So you just need to get him to do a pre-recording at that as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
our next
well,
event
I-
is literally in a week, so I doubt he's going to be down for
wow.
that one.
Well, look,
No,
you said that you were going to
unfortunately
talk to him afterwards. I was optimistic on someone's
Yes,
behalf.
yeah.
All
Well,
right,
lads,
Ben, have I
thanks
missed
so much
anything?
for coming on. No, you nailed it, mate. It's been absolutely amazing having all you guys on to basically talk about stuff that we love doing.
No,
Hearing
thanks for
all
doing
about
this,
kind
man.
of your.
This
Yeah,
is
thanks
amazing.
for
Oh, it's
having
been
us.
awesome. It's
To even be talked
been
about
great
this
to-
way is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great
Mm.
to hear about like your stories and how you actually got into doing it and like your backgrounds and kind of how you even ended up here. It's all been been really insightful as well, and there's been a lot that I'm sure we can take away and use in the future as well. So I really appreciate your time. I can't believe you're running an event so soon, so I won't take up too much of your time. You've probably got a lot of
It's
a lot
all
of
done.
players
It's all
packs
done.
to shove down people's throats, I imagine. So,
It's
Yeah,
all
dude, you gotta put
sorted.
out
It's
all those-
all. It's
You got
all
to put
ready
out
to
those
go.
players packs for people to not read.
that's brilliant.
Well, the worst-
Yeah.
The worst thing is we have our Christmas party the night before.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
We have the Risky Rollins Christmas party the night before, and then the event straight after, which is
That's
50
Risky.
players.
Very
That's
risky.
brilliant.
Yep.
I love that.
That's how we
Well,
do
lads,
it.
all,
All right, I
If you
am going to
haven't-
click
if-
the big red button. I bet there's going to be a second one, but here we go. 3, 2, 1, bye. Yep, there's another button.
Bye.
There he is.
Ah.